Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep-end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 45% off with minimum purchase. Plus, get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
What's up, The Hook Rocks? This is Tyler Baker from Goodbye June. You are listening to Jay Scott on the best podcast in the freaking universe.
Remember all the times that we would say goodbye. We would always sit and wonder why the days would go so fast. I wish that they would last. I wish they never passed. 'Cause you hate me, but you won't never stay. 'Cause I'm
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Hook Rocks. I'm your host, Jay Scott. Few weeks left till the end of the year. Hope everyone's getting in their holiday shopping and getting ready to end the year 2021 and begin 2022. Once again, I'm your host, Jay Scott, and this is The Hook Rocks, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, great network of music-related podcasts, something for everybody on the network. I always mention my friends, Carmen Apice and Vinny Appice, on the Hangin' and Bangin' podcast with local Chicago promoter Ron Anesti. Also check out Shout Out Loudcast with Tom and Zeus. We also did a collaborative podcast that aired last week called the Zeppelin Chronicles, and we focused in on the first Led Zeppelin album, talked about that, the songs, the tour, the music, all that good stuff. Check out Martin Popoff, the rock historian, Mistress Carrie out in Boston, as well as Baco on Cobras and Fire. Also, you can follow The Hook Rocks on Twitter at The Hook Rocks. Also, follow us wherever you do get your podcasts, whether it's Amazon, Spotify, or Apple. We are available on every platform. Don't forget to set your app to automatic download, so the latest and greatest Hook Rocks podcast gets right to your phone. Great for your commute, great for you when you're doing chores around the house, listening in on your earbuds, or your headphones, I should say. Always love to hear your feedback. Please leave us a review if you are so inclined. Follow us on Facebook at The Hook Rocks, and look out for some really cool things coming in the year 2022. We've just did some great episodes, namely with Emer Reynolds, the director of the Thin Lizzy Phil Lynott documentary, Songs for While I'm Away. We also did a bunch of great new music spotlights like the one we have today with bands like Crooked Shapes, Black Spiders, Seven Stones, and The Odd Even. So check all those out as well. And one of a great episode that got a lot of great feedback on the streaming platforms offering the lowest rated royalties in the history of music. So check out that. How much more can you take, people? How much more can they take? Our next guest is another new band, new music spotlight that we love to focus on new emerging bands in the scene, both in the U.S. and abroad. This band is from Minnesota. This band is a really, really cool fucking band, I got to tell you. Like to welcome in Clay Deters from the band The Issue. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, anytime. Glad you're here. Love the song Fallen, as I talked to you right before we got on. We're going to get into all that stuff, man. We're going to get into the band, the music, what's going on now, what's happening next. But we always start the same way every time we have a first-time guest, and that is what we're all about. And
sure,
just like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance, that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Honestly, an early band that I started listening to a lot when I was younger, thanks to my older brothers, was Lynyrd Skynyrd, of all bands. The song Saturday Night Special, I think I listened to that song on repeat over and over and over again when I was younger. So yeah, stuff like Saturday Night Special and You Got That Right, those tunes, I love the guitars in those. And then as I got older though and started listening to some heavier rock, Alice Chains, when I was in high school, I stopped at a Walmart. I don't remember what I was picking up, but I swung through the CD aisle just for the hell of it. And I saw the Greatest Hits album and I threw it in. And I hadn't really listened to much Alice in Chains prior to that, other than hearing them on the radio occasionally. But I mean, Man in the Box right off the bat. And for me, it was game over from there.
What about, what happened next for you? I mean, you are a musician, you're in a band, hearing all these songs and connecting with it was huge, but when did it become something that you wanted to do? When did it become something that led to you being in a band?
So I had two older brothers that played in kind of like a local cover band in our area. I grew up in a small town in central Minnesota. And there really wasn't a lot going on, music wise, other than, there's a handful of cover bands that would play here and there. So for me and getting into music and stuff, my two older brothers played a huge role in that. They both played guitar, both loved rock music, country music as well. So I kind of had a wide range of music coming at me when I was younger. But yeah, I was around them all the time when I was in high school, and I would go and help set up at their shows and, run lights and stuff like that. So that's kind of what introduced me into, being in a band. So I kind of decided, when I was in high school that like, this is really cool. I'd like to play music, and I had already been playing guitar as well at that point. So I started a band in high school. We played a couple gigs with my older brothers. And then it was after high school, when I really got serious about it and started the band, The Issue, or what it was back then. And it was with, just some high school buddies as well. Guys that, I knew played music and were super into music and stuff. So we just started what The Issue was back then. And in a small town and small town surrounding areas, there's not really a lot of access to original music. So we started out playing as a cover band, and we would play all around in local bars and stuff like that. And that's kind of where we cut our chops. And then, a year into us, playing shows like that is when we started writing music. And then we would play some songs live and kind of see what people are digging and stuff. And then, from there on, we kind of decided that we wanted to chase more the original route. And we started writing songs and kind of relocated to the Minneapolis area and started working our way into that scene. And, just kept writing music and finally recorded some tunes, and a few band member changes evolved to where it is now. And that's kind of a little bit of the backstory of the issue, I guess.
Well, when you're putting all this together and you're on that mission to form a band, to make music, to create, when you're, tying all this down, how are you developing your sound that has become the issue?
So we kind of pull from a wide range of influences, I would say. I'm kind of more of just a straight up rock guy. Like I said, a lot of 90s stuff was kind of my jam. That's kind of where we all honestly come together, is on, bands like Stone Temple Pilots, Alice Chains, Soundgarden, and then some early 2000s rock, Alter Bridge and Seether, stuff like that. We pull a lot of influence from them, the Foo Fighters. And then, like Colin, our drummer, he's a little bit more of a punk rock guy. And you can hear that in his drumming and kind of how he puts his phrases and stuff together. And then our bass player, Kyle, he's into more of like the prog rock and metal stuff like that. And then Colin Johnson, our guitar player, he comes from a little bit more of like a Jimi Hendrix, classic rock place with like a, modern, like almost indie rock feel sound. So we get a lot of influences coming in, and I guess that's kind of what's evolved the sound into where it is now.
What are some of the challenges with forming a band when you come from a small town?
Well, it's really, like I said before, it's really just access or lack thereof. Because, a small town bar, I shouldn't say a small town bar, but a bar in general, in order to host or do live music of any sort, they got to be able to make money. And when you're dealing with, fewer people in the area and stuff, it's a little bit tougher to make it go of just like a full on original rock night where you have a lineup of bands and they're all playing original music. Generally people are in the smaller town areas, they're just looking more for a form of entertainment where it's, hear the songs that you might hear on the radio and stuff like that. So, to really get started as a cover or a original band in a smaller town, it's a little bit of a tough sell. So for us, we cut our chops, playing and learning how to perform live, in a cover band setting. And then when we decided that we really wanted to chase down, the original thing, that's when we, made the move to the Minneapolis area and started making the connections we needed to make down there in order to, get into venues and get into studios and meet producers and all that different stuff. And, we met a guy early on in the band going to Minneapolis. Brad Matala owns a studio in Arden Hills, and he kind of took us under his wing and, showed me the ropes on the ins and out of the recording process in the studio, and has really been a big supporter of the band, helping us shoot music videos. He was part of the music video for Fallen. And, that relationship that we built with him earlier on was really a key to us getting anywhere and getting shows in the cities and, getting songs recorded and really kind of learning what it is to be more of a professional band.
As far as writing goes, you mentioned Leonard Skinner growing up, but as you develop your style or as you began to write your own original music and lyrics, what were some of the songs that you heard that said to you, connected with you, that you wanted to write your own music, you wanted to write your own lyrics? Was there a moment that occurred for you?
Yeah, I would say fairly early on, it was bands like, Alter Bridge, Seether, Alice Chains, and the Foo Fighters. Those are kind of like the big four for me. And as far as like, putting together chord progressions and riffs and stuff like that, they're catchy hard rock riffs. They're not anything too crazy, but there's certain technicalities to it in certain spots. And then as far as like melodies go, just, kind of more floating melodic melodies. And then with when the chorus hits, trying to get the big hook,
Yeah.
So it's either something that's more in your face or, a little more melodic. And, I always, for whatever reason, I always got into, not like crazy, like metal screaming, but like, more, I guess I'm not sure the word that I'm looking for, but, more of a placement scream where like it is an impact point where it's not the focal point of the song, but it's more of an impact point. And Dave Grohl is always a guy that would do that in his songwriting, and Sean Morgan from Seether as well. He floats stuff like that in. So that's kind of, for me personally, that's where I drew a lot of my influence as far as like my melodies and lyrical content as well, somewhat dark lyrics. Not all the time, but dark lyrics where it's not you kind of have to maybe think about it just a little bit to get, where the lyrics are going, but they're not, hard to follow along with either, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Do you write from personal experience? Do you write from observation? Are you trying to tell a story, or, do you have a vision of what you're trying to tell through the lyrics? Where do you find your motivation?
I would say it's kind of a combination of all those things. As far as life experience goes, I'm a fairly young guy. I haven't had anything all that crazy, happen in my life. So I can't draw from like any like really dark personal experience place where you've gone through something that's super heavy. So it's more of observation and, thinking about just life and certain things that have taken place, within the past however many years, and just, how other people maybe observe things and like taking that into consideration, and like maybe seeing somebody else go through something, and you kind of like try to put yourself in that position and imagine, feeling a certain way, having gone through whatever it is that they've gone through. And then, obviously relationship stuff. I'm recently married, but obviously I've gone through relationships in the past and certain ups and downs and stuff like that. So trying to draw from all of that stuff and just kind of life in general, I suppose, more so than anything else. Just, the things that go on in kind of everyday life and how it affects you, mentally and your personal relationships with others, I guess.
Heartache always writes a great song, right?
For whatever reason, it seems to.
Yeah, absolutely. So you form the band, you're on this mission here to get the issue going, and you find yourself with the people you want to play with and the people you want to surround yourself with. How do you guys collaborate as a band?
So we're always, first and foremost, we're a live band. we love playing live. So, just getting in a room together, that's our mojo, is when all four of us are in a room jamming. That's where the magic happens. So as far as like collaborating and writing and creating music, we'll each kind of have different ideas that will maybe come to the band with. But for the most part, our songwriting is fairly organic, and it's like, hey, I got a riff. Let's see what happens with it. And we'll get in a room and we'll start playing, and, we just feed off each other and spend a little time on the song, and we get a song put together. It's fairly rare that one of us will bring a whole complete song to the band. There's been times where there has been some of that, but even when that does happen and we're all in the room with it, we chop it up and, try to make it the best that we feel that we can make it, with everybody's input and, everybody's different flavor on the song. So it really comes down to just getting in a room and playing. That's what we do best. So we try not to get too far away from that, I guess.
When you are, developing your sound and you're collaborating with musicians, other members of the band that have different influences, is it easy to take, that step back and say, all right, hey, let's kind of see where this goes? Or, are you the person that leads the direction that the band needs to go in?
It's one of those things where, when you write the lyrics, you kind of have an idea of where you want things to head, and, the type of music that you're looking for, in order to make sure that the lyrics and the, how the lyrics are coming together, make sure the music can best portray what you're trying to say. So, I mean, I guess, I would say there's maybe certain tendencies that I have that the band usually ends up, maybe leaning more towards in the writing process. But, I still think that, bands create the best music. Obviously, there's a lot of great solo acts out there, and, a lot of great writers. But, I kind of come from a little bit of an old school mentality where, a band is what makes, I just always wanted to be in a band, and I wanted to, be involved with writing music with other people and seeing where that takes us. So, it's not really ever a deal where it's like, hey, this is how I want it to go, and this is how we're going to do it. There's maybe times where I'll lean heavily more towards something because I feel it's going to fit better with the vocal melody and what I'm trying to do that way. But again, I think it still just comes down to letting everybody, put their best foot forward in their songwriting process and deliver the best quality part that they can. And then we just mold everything together, and I guess out comes the issue.
As far as the music goes, like I said, you just released the new single Fallen, which anyone listening, go check it out. It's a fantastic song.
Thank you.
But what's next for you guys? I know you guys got some dates here at the end and the beginning of 2022, mostly in Wisconsin or Minnesota.
Yep.
Is there a plan to start venturing off into other states and other areas of the country?
I mean, that's the goal for us. We've kind of been in the Midwest area for the most part, as a band, really North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, just the Midwest area. So we're really hoping to branch out further, than that. That's kind of the goal. So yeah, with that, it's just, trying to release as much good quality music as we can. And we've been putting out some music videos to go, with our songs. We're trying to do a good job with that stuff and really, put ourselves out there on YouTube to hopefully broaden our fan base so we can, continue traveling further out of the state. And, the goal would be to get, across the country, ideally. So, in order to do that, you got to continue writing good songs and performing good music. So I guess as far as, our plans going forward, we got a few more tunes to finish up to round out an EP, and we'll be hopefully putting that out in the near future. And then we're always writing new songs. So we're preparing for our first full length album. I don't have any details as far as that goes. We're still in the songwriting process, but the albums really aren't as much of a thing anymore, but on a personal level, we'd still like to put out a full length album. We've been doing the singles the past few releases, and that's nice for, kind of building a little bit bigger of a fan base and not releasing all your stuff at once. But a guy still likes to put out an album. So that's the goal here within the next year to year and a half. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's the plan.
I'm still an album guy. I still love my CDs and my vinyl. I mean, the single to me, I think that's one of the reasons why rock and roll struggles in certain areas, is because rock and roll, to me, or in my opinion, relies so much on the physical experience, or the experience in general.
Absolutely.
Music, the cover art, the actual packaging, all that stuff. And I think it misses something when a fan can't experience that, when it's just point, click, and download. I think, music in general is suffering because of it, but I think out of all the genres, rock music is the one that's most affected because, you mentioned Alice in Chains and buying these albums when you were younger. I remember going back to buying like the Maidens and the the Ozzy Osbourne albums, Motley Crue, with these covers that were like, you just bought an album based on the cover almost. And then you just let that babysit you for however long, you enjoyed it. And I do think a full length album or some sort of physical release, whether even if it's an EP, where people can touch it and hold it. I think the strength of the relationship in music is helped by that experience, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. And, I'm kind of bummed out. I just missed, the whole album thing. I grew up I was born in 96, I guess. So I grew up in the early 2000s, and CDs were kind of just on the back end of things. And it was starting to, switch over to streaming. iTunes was a thing and stuff. And then, Spotify and now Apple Music and all that stuff is going on. So, I'm bummed out personally that I missed out on that whole experience. Obviously I bought albums when I was younger, but I didn't get the whole vinyl thing. And I hear my parents and, others talk about just how much of an experience it really was, to, read through the albums, you flip through the artwork and you have this thing that you put on the record player and you sit there and you listen to it. That's what you do. It's not background music. It could be, but it's more than that. It's, nowadays music has almost turned into just background noise for everyday activities because it's so accessible. And that's great that is accessible as it is. It makes it possible for up and coming bands to maybe get foot and take off and kind of do things without needing a big label and stuff behind them. But at the same time, I think the amount of accessibility that there has had somewhat of a negative effect as well, because it takes away from the actual experience that's going on and turns it into more of just a background noise for you to, do your everyday activities.
Yeah, I think, well, let me ask you this. As a new band, obviously the goal is to stay in front of people and create new fans. And a lot of people believe that by releasing a single every certain amount of weeks allows a band to do that and allows a band to grow an audience. I don't necessarily disagree with that, because you even if you think things are better the way they were, you still have to adapt the way that things are. And how, as a new band, how do you meet that challenge? How do you stay in front of a building audience? Because you guys are a newer band, emerging band, and trying to get in front of people. I mean, I just talked to a singer of a band today, who is about to release an album after the first of the year, and they already almost have another album after that almost completed, because there's that constant need to stay in front. And the only way you do that is to have more material. So as a new band, how do you meet that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you kind of have to play ball with how the times have changed. So I think as a new band, you really do have to take advantage of what singles have to offer in the online streaming world. Unfortunately, I guess you could say that it has gone that way. But as far as like Spotify and Apple Music goes, they really push singles because they like more content. So if you're just putting out singles, odds are that you're putting more frequent releases on their service. So I guess as far as that goes, I think you can really kill two birds with one stone and enjoy what those singles might have to offer for you in your promotional end of things for your album, but then still release an album at the end of it. If you have a full album's worth of material, drag it out for a few months and release 4, 5, 6 singles, like they kind of used to. Just drag it out a little bit longer. I mean, heck, release all of them as singles if you want, and then put the album out. I think that's kind of just almost what you have to do nowadays. If you're a new band, you got to just take advantage of the opportunity to put yourself, in front of people over and over and over again. And then having, content outside of the release itself, whether it be a video or, something of some sort to go along with it. It seems to help just grow your fan base a little bit in a little bit broader fashion, I suppose you could say. And I guess that's really it. And try and play shows when and if you can. I think there's still something to say about live music. I think people still want to see bands and go to bands. I think that's going to be more inevitable too, coming out of the pandemic and everything that everybody's gone through the past couple years. Now's the time to make sure that you're a good live band, because I think people are going to be itching to see as much music and live stuff as possible.
As far as your music, like I said, you just released the single Fallen, and you've got another single out there called You as well. And there's some other content on YouTube that you have out there of some live performances. As far as the music goes, what was it like for you guys making music in 2021? Were these songs that you had been working on for a while? Explain the process, explain that, were these songs or how these songs were created?
Yeah, so these were all songs other than You. That was a new one. But the What You Need that we had released right after the first of the year, early on in 21, and then Fallen. And even in 2020, we released a single called Open Your Eyes. All those tunes are ones that we've had. And we were actually finishing up the song Open Your Eyes kind of right as things were coming to a head as far as the pandemic goes and lockdowns and what have you. So it was, that song kind of hit at an interesting time based on the content of the song. But then it was like, okay, well, now what do we do? We're not really supposed to be doing anything. So it was kind of, just waiting things out. And then, when people were comfortable to start getting together again and get in a room, it was just like, all right, now we kind of have to game plan based off the cards we were dealt. And that's kind of when we started going back through material, and we recorded What You Need, put that one out. And then You was something that spawned from just jamming on some of this material. Our Colin Johnson, our guitar player, he just had joined the band, or he just joined the band a few months ago as a full-time member. And when we were working out some of this new material with him, that riff just kind of, came out of jamming, and we wrote that one, and we're like, hey, this is a catchy enough tune. Let's just put it out right away, And so we put it out, and then Fallen, our latest release, this song is one that's kind of been sitting around with the issue for a while. It was a riff that I've had for a long time, and we kind of didn't really know what to do with it. And we had wrote a kind of a version of what the song is now. And then when Colin joined the band, we kind of drug it back out and dusted it off, and he put his spin on things, and it kind of brought the song back to life. And then we worked with a new producer for the song for our last 3 releases in 2021. And when he got a hold of Fallen, he dug the tune, and he's like, I got some changes I'd like to make. If you guys don't mind me kind of stepping in here and let me know what you think. And he kind of chopped it up a little bit, and we reworked the song, and it turned out, way better than it has been in the past. So, we liked it, and we're like, yeah, heck yeah, let's put this one out too. So we finished it up and just released it, and decided to shoot a music video and do all that stuff for it too. So really it was just kind of like, well, we can record music and put it out, so we might as well just do that. And then obviously later on, as things started to open up, we started playing some shows and getting in front of people again. But it's been an interesting couple of years, to say the least.
As far as ending this year and with the music you have, when can we expect more from you guys into the new year?
Ideally, we're hoping to have an EP released by the end of the winter, going into the spring. As I mentioned before, we have 3 more songs to finish up in the studio to round that out, and that's going to be put together with our last 3 singles that we released. And then, we're doing a bunch of stuff in the studio, writing new material, like I said, for the full length album. But then we're also just kind of doing some video stuff. We're gonna be really trying to pump up our YouTube channel over the course of the winter. So if you can check that out. If you go to, I think it's youtube.com/theissuemn is our YouTube channel. And yeah, we're just going to be trying to do some in-studio stuff, some live things. We're each going to, maybe do some walkthroughs on guitar parts and drum parts, stuff, kind of fun, interesting stuff like that. If you dig music, and you like kind of getting into whatever the backstory or of a song or whatever, we're going to try and do some stuff like that. And then, yeah, just, keep recording and try and get this full length album done and start releasing new material off that as quick as possible.
Yeah, no, that sounds exciting. as far as like we mentioned, you know, with the music, you know, that you're developing, how is it that, let me try to phrase this the correct way. As far as a song that you've been working on a long time, and it finally comes out, and it finally comes to, you know, fruition in terms of the vision that you have for the song, and, you know, having new members come in and work on it. When that does happen, how do you identify the song as, you know, as being part of the issue? I mean, this is a song that maybe you started, that other members were not part of the band as well. But as far as that creative process goes, is it satisfying for you when a song that you've been working on for a while is finally complete, but it took like new members to help push that song out?
I would say, well, definitely, yeah, or absolutely. It's, you know, it's a great feeling. It's always a great feeling when you're like, okay, this is it. This is a good song. You hear it back in the studio monitors, and you're like, all right, yep, this is it. You know, and Fallen is a prime example of a song like that, where, you know, it had been in our back catalog for some time, and, you know, we kind of always bust it out and jam on it and work on it. And for me, lyrically, it was always kind of a little bit, it threw me for a loop writing it, because a lot of our other material is a little more upfront, a little more hard rocking, and I found it easier for whatever reason to write lyrics, you know, more on the spot, you could say, in those settings. It kind of hits you a little bit differently. It's a more like in the moment type rocking in the room with the guys type thing, where this one, you know, it's a little bit of it's a lighter song. It has some hard rock tendencies, but it's a little bit more melodic and comes from a little bit different place. So I kind of had to reprogram my brain to write lyrics for a song, you know, of this kind of pace. So I struggled for a while coming up with how I wanted to approach it lyrically and melodically, and you know, it wasn't till after Colin was in the band and we pulled it back out again with him and kind of restarted putting the song together, and then the studio time was coming, because we had decided that we wanted to record it, and I was still struggling to finalize lyrics. So I kind of got put on the hot seat a little bit. But then, yeah, it kind of finally came together. I listened to the song over and over again, I think for 2 days straight, just really trying to figure out the best way to approach this song. And it finally came to me, and I figured out the melody that I liked and I wanted to chase down. And then the lyrics came as soon as I figured out how I wanted to approach the melody. The lyrics came pretty quick. So it was, you know, once we got together with Ian, our producer, and started chopping it up and really got it to where we're like, yeah, this is a kick-ass song. I mean, it was a really good feeling to have this one out and have it where it ended up being. And especially since it, you know, it was probably a 2-3 year process for this song. You know, most songs that we've written are, you know, we start working on them, and within a couple weeks we're pretty content with where the song's at. But for whatever reason, this one just kind of took a little bit more time, and I don't know if it took some maturing or what it took, but yeah, we're happy to have it out, and happy so far with the response from it as well.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I look forward to more music from you guys, and can't wait to see what you guys have in store for 2022.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it a lot.
All right, Clay. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. Can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah, man, stay in touch. Like I said, we'll be doing a bunch of stuff. So hopefully I can come back on and update you on things.
Yeah, and get down here to Chicago too.
Definitely. We were supposed to play Chicago before the pandemic hit. We had a date, and that obviously got pulled because of the pandemic. But we're hopefully, kind of as we're regrouping, touring wise, coming out of this thing, where Chicago is definitely going to be one of the spots. So hopefully we can see out there.
Do you remember where the gig was at?
I don't off the top of my head. I was just trying to think of that as I was saying that. The name of the venue is spacing me right now for some reason.
Okay. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, everybody. That's Clay Deters from the band The Issue. I'm Jay Scott. This is the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Stay safe, stay healthy. We will talk again soon. Take care of each other as well.
300 Favorite Albums with James Campion.
I don't think there's an album I know better front to back. I learned how to play guitar to a lot of these songs.
If I could pick one record to hand someone and say this is what it feels like to be a woman, it would be this record.
You know, the engineer that was recording the album for us was a novice engineer. He was really the janitor.
The first half of these sessions for the album were totally improvisatory in the sense that they went into the studio and just dealt with whatever happened.
There was space that was left for these listeners to kind of discover it for themselves. That they would say, yeah, my parents listened to it, but I had to build my own relationship to it.
Happiness, good living, peace, love, rock and roll. I just feel like this album is such a wonderful translation of that concept.
People understood they were in a world historical moment, and it felt like it was going to last forever. In fact, the infinite spaces that they explored in The Giant Now is part of what made that explosion so huge.